week later, after we had that conversation on his show, and we obviously talked about much more, and I even got him to say that if Cali brought lockdowns back and mandates and everything else, that he actually would move to Florida. That's a pretty big concession for the gold standard of liberalism in America. Here is Bill Maher on his show 1 week later, talking about the pandemic and our reaction and all the subsequent problems.
Now we're getting some information after a while. We have time to find out just how bad the collateral damage has been. Here's just a few cases. The pandemic erased 2 decades of progress in math and reading. See, right away, I got to say, this pisses me off. I see these headlines all the time. The pandemic didn't do that. The way we handled the pandemic did that. The pandemic certainly was a thing. But let's not just say the pandemic, because it was not written in stone that we had to handle it the way we did. ACT scores are the lowest in 30 years. Anxiety and depression way up. The body mass index doubled for kids 2 to 19. Drug overdose deaths. Murders way up. Inflation at a 40-year high. Domestic violence increased. Oh, and my favorite, car crashes. They couldn't figure this out. Like way up. And finally, I love this. This is the expert said. You know what it is? People just went fucking mental. They just went nuts. They're like, I'm home. The fucking kids are here all the time. My stupid husband is here all the time. I'm just going to take it out on the highway. And they did.
What you don't have is the benefit of the alternative scenarios to see how they would have come out, to be able to judge whether what did happen was a lesser evil than other options that would have unfolded. And so suppose...
Actually we do, because other countries handled it differently. Sweden didn't handle it differently. Some of the places with the lowest vaccination rates turned out to have the best results.
With really low population densities.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, yes, there are different factors. There are.
Yes, I think that matters.
Yes, of course it matters.
It's a sort of a different factor.
You just said...
I'm walking to an elevator in New York City, there's 15 people
right
here.
You just said that we can't make any judgments because we don't live in an alternative universe where America handled it differently. And I'm saying other places handled it differently. That does matter.
I think it's a legitimate conversation to have. You remember there was talk of herd immunity and how we get there at the outset, and people were shouted down for even raising that prospect. I'm not the scientist you are, but in retrospect,
they shouted down the idea that it might have escaped from a lab.
Right.
That was somehow racist, as opposed to somehow if you believed that it came from the wet markets, you were a Democrat, and if you believed it came from a lab, you were a Republican. This is ridiculous.
So that is good, right? It's good when people, and I know a lot of you, and when I talk about Bill Maher, I always get a lot of comments. People are like, why are you still talking about him? He's never going to get there. He voted for all Democrats last time around. But if someone like him talking about some of this stuff, getting to the truth, better late than never, right? Because he's supporting, as far as I can tell, he's supporting still a guy like Gavin Newsom, who is still for all of these things, or at least did all of these things in the past, right? But him talking about it, waking up some people is good.